Hi boys and girls, Mrs. Blackburn here today for our writing lesson. If you don't have paper and pencil, please go get that so that you can take notes during our lesson today. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. All right, so the title of our lesson today is Nonfiction Authors Tell Information in Chronological Order or Temporal Sequence. Our learning goal: students will notice chronological and temporal sequence in nonfiction text. Our success criteria: I can use academic vocabulary such as nonfiction, author, organize, information, chronological, and temporal. So some of those are new vocabulary words for us. Let's go ahead and look at our anchor chart. Nonfiction authors tell information in chronological order or temporal order. Now, chronological order should not be a new word or word that you've heard. These are text structures, and we're going to talk more about those here in just a little bit. But temporal order probably is. Temporal order is what we used to call sequential order. So we'll talk about that here on this anchor chart. So with chronological order, if we look at the book Cod and Titanic, the definition would be that it describes a series of events in the order that they happened. And this is probably the easiest for students to understand because they use these signal words like then, after a few years, in 1995, until. So as soon as you see those key signal words in the text, you automatically know that the text structure is chronological order. And these two books definitely use chronological order because we know all authors have to organize their text. Okay? So here's an example. Eric and Leif left Iceland in 982. That would definitely be an example. They arrived in a new land. If we read that, that's an exact time, exact date. That's a signal that that was written in chronological order. Then they built a colony. This is happening in a certain order. It's not describing anything. It's not a problem solution. The text structure is chronological order. It's going with first, next, and then what happened in the order that it happened. All right, let's take a look at temporal order. So this is a book called Skateboards, and in temporal order, it describes the sequence in which something always or usually occurs, such as the steps in a process. So maybe before in your classrooms, you were asked to describe how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So you do have the steps in order. For example, you wouldn't put the peanut butter on before you had the bread out. These are the things that would happen in a certain order. You have steps 1, 2, 3, etc. These also are in a certain order. However, it is different from chronological order. An example would be step 1. He chooses strips of wood. Okay. Step 2. He examines each strip. Step 3. He sands the strips. So these are the steps in temporal order or sequential order like you may have heard before for the text structures. So nonfiction authors always use these type of text structure when organizing their writing. They don't just write, they think about the order and the organization of their writing. Okay, so let's move on. Here's an example of chronological order. So again, we're going to be looking for those clue words of like dates and times. Olympic Games, chronological. The Olympic Games first began as athletic festivals to honor the Greek gods. At that time, the most important festival was held in the Valley of Olympia to honor Zeus, the king of the gods. It was the festival that became the Olympic Games in 776 BC. Later, these games were ended in AD 394 by the Roman emperor who ruled Greece. No Olympic Games were held for more than 1,500 years. Then the modern Olympics began in 1896. Almost 300 male athletes competed in the first modern Olympics. During the games held in 1900, female athletes were allowed to compete. The games have continued every 4 years since 1896, except during World War II, and they will most likely continue for many years to come. So we have several clue words here that help us identify this text structure as chronological. We have the word first. We have also dates. This says 776 BC. Then we have 394 AD. This time comes after this time. Then it says that no Olympic Games were held for more than 1,500 years. So that time has passed. And then it says that Olympics began again in 1896. We have 1900, we have 1896, again, then World War II. So here's dates and times. This is in chronological order, or the order of events that they happened. So that's how we can identify the text structure here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about temporal sequence. So alternately, consider instructions on how to make cookies. When did that occur? Well, you can make cookies at any time or no time at all. This is because a recipe describes a process or a sequence, one which is not attached to any specific chronology, like when we were discussing the Olympics. Unlike chronologically ordered texts, information organized sequentially does not occur at any specific time, but rather any time. These signal words are first, next, before, lastly, then. For example, how to make cookies. First, get your materials, then make your dough. Lastly, cook your dough at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. And here's a nice graphic organizer to help you remember the sequential process. Remember, this temporal sequence is the same as sequential process, but we are calling it temporal sequence. You get your materials, you make your dough, and you cook your dough. That would be the temporal sequence for this activity. Okay, so this is a text structure, temporal sequence. All right, so we're going to move on. In conclusion, nonfiction authors organize information in chronological or temporal sequence. So what do I want you to take away from this? I want you as a writer to start beginning to think about how to organize your writing. No longer are we just writing in one big long paragraph. We are now thinking of text structure. This not only helps you as a writer, but it also helps you as a reader. Very good. If you can identify the text structure, for example, if we know that the text structure is chronological or temporal order, we automatically know that the genre is nonfiction. That's going to tell us that automatically. It's going to help with our comprehension. We'll be talking about the other types of text structures. We will be practicing writing them this week, and we'll also have some quizzes over them this week. So please watch the videos carefully. Don't forget to take notes and look back at your notes. I hope you have a wonderful day. Reach out to your teachers if you have questions.